Now, Walz is weird, but he disguises it under the costume of phony compassion, a fake politician who masks destructive ideas under the guise of empathy. At a 2017 town hall, he implied 10-year-old boys should be able to invade girls' bathrooms because it's all...
Tim Walz is now saying about Trump supporters, and forgive me, I'm just reading a quote from Tim Walz, I think I could kick most of their ass.
Oh boy, he'd be in trouble.
Is there any way to know?
Well, he's a loser, you know. I mean, the guy...
You think you already know the story? Think again. This political circus didn't slowly fall apart. It crashed straight into chaos. Greg Gutfeld and Donald Trump, a no-filter duo with no brakes, joined forces and lit up Tim Walz like it was a holiday show and he was the main event. One moment, Walz was calmly delivering his smooth, carefully prepared talking points. The next boom, he was dodging sharp sarcasm and massive egos like a politician trapped in a public embarrassment machine. So what started all of this? How did Minnesota suddenly turn into a national joke overnight? Fair warning, it gets more awkward than a badly timed sing-along at Mar-a-Lago, and that bar was already buried underground.
Walz continues to be criticized for embellishing his rank and service. After it came out over the weekend, he once claimed to be an official bikini inspector. Walz's direct superior in the National Guard says Walz knew his unit was about to deploy to Iraq and went behind the back of his superior officer to resign. When reached for comment, Walz yelled, "Hey, look over there," and then ran away.
I think I would have won. Susie would say I would have won Pennsylvania easily anyway, even if the governor ran, the real governor, not the governor from Minnesota, he's a sick puppy, that guy. That poor guy, I feel sorry for him. But they made a bad choice with him.
Tim Walz continues to be criticized for embellishing his rank and service. After it came out over the weekend, he once claimed to be an official bikini inspector. Walz's direct superior in the National Guard says Walz knew his unit was about to deploy to Iraq and went behind the back of his superior officer to resign. When reached for comment, Walz yelled, "Hey, look over there," and then ran away.
I think I would have won. Susie would say I would have won Pennsylvania easily anyway, even if the governor ran, the real governor, not the governor from Minnesota, he's a sick puppy, that guy. That poor guy, I feel sorry for him. But they made a bad choice.
They say real leadership starts with vision, but Tim Walz seemed to be following a different script. One where vision means airtime, because the only thing he really appears focused on is the closest camera and his next carefully staged press moment. When things start falling apart, the blame goes everywhere. The weather, bad timing, unlucky circumstances, or even Greg Gutfeld. That helps take the pressure off. He's running Minnesota, like a game set to the hardest level possible, with every crisis turn on and no safety nets in place. Think potholes are bad? Just wait until you look closer at his policies. They're deeper, messier, and ready to rip through anything unlucky enough to cross their path.
Walz, it's hard to even bring him up. He has a resting snitch face. You know? He forfeited his man card during COVID and the riots. And you're right. And also, at that diner, of course, he left early. So don't you find it weird that for a terrifying threat to democracy that Trump is, not a single interviewer in his history has approached...
If you're enjoying this takedown, make sure to hit that subscribe button. It helps more than you probably realize. Under Tim Walz, Minnesota now feels like a political deep freeze. Something left sitting there since 2020. Bland, outdated, and questionable enough to make anyone pause. And yet, he keeps trying to dress it up with fresh excuses and still expect. Meanwhile, Greg Gutfeld came in with nonstop sarcasm, and Trump showed up with the subtlety of a demolition crew holding a megaphone. Together, they set this ongoing PR disaster on fire. The harsh truth, they barely had to do anything. The moment was already there, just waiting to be exposed.
This here's the quote. We saw just recently Donald Trump's executive order to make it more difficult, specifically to women, trying to make it more difficult for women to be able to vote. We see one of the first things they do is try and restrict the vote.
Wait, so Trump is making it more difficult for women to vote? How so? Math problems? But it's further proof that the most dangerous thing for a leftist is a follow-up question, which is why you...
This takedown didn't need any planning. The punchlines practically wrote themselves. When a leader locks down an entire state so tightly during the pandemic that even Wi-Fi feels like it needs permission, you'd expect something to improve, but it didn't. The roads still look like they've been hit by one meteor after another. Taxes keep rising like they're chasing something invisible. And crime, that's a whole separate discussion. Minneapolis, Underwalls, now feels like a real-life game stuck on hard mode. No restarts, no updates, and graphics that somehow look worse than reality. It's pure chaos with no one clearly in control.
I'm especially talking about these old white guys who seem to disappoint us on a regular basis in this country.
Dude. You're an old white guy. And you're right, you are a huge disappointment. I guess hating himself is the first thing he's...
So, what's his big solution to all of this? More task forces, more reports, and an endless cycle of advisory boards like trying to stop a flood with tape and hopeful thinking. He treats serious problems like small mistakes in a slideshow, something to ignore until the next meeting rolls around. His whole governing style seems to be delayed long enough, and maybe it goes away or comes back rebranded and asking for more funding. That's not leadership. That's stalling. Dressed up in a suit and sold as real governance.
Are people misreading Tim's odd greeting? The man of the hour, Tim Walz, brings us our second video of the day, and he's got a very weird way of greeting his wife of 30 years. Roll it. I want to see this in slow motion. You'll see Waltz extends his hand to his wife. She grabs it. They shake. He pulls her close and then goes in for that non-friction hug, all the while still shaking her hand. I wish there was a word to describe that. Oh, yeah, weird.
Then Donald Trump storms in with the kind of chaos Minnesota never asked for, but somehow invited. He looks over Tim Walz's record and laughs like he's just been handed a trophy for most ineffective governor in the region. Yes, Trump comes with his own long list of controversies, but standing next to Walz, he suddenly looks like Winston Churchill in a red cap. At least Trump moves loudly, unpredictably, and sometimes confusingly, but it's still movement. Walz, meanwhile, governs like a substitute teacher who lost a lesson plan. Lots of talking, no real control. And right now, the fastest moving thing in Minnesota isn't reform. It's people and businesses packing up and leaving like a reverse Oregon Trail. No wagon crashes, no wild disasters, just residents fleeing taxes and policies that make financial collapse feel like an escape.
I think the Democrats were crazy for saying that men have periods, but then I met Tim Walz.
Let's talk business, because under Tim Walz, Minnesota has become the place where companies go to slowly suffocate under rules so tight they start missing California. One small business owner tried to open a simple lemonade stand and somehow ended up dealing with zoning approvals, climate forms, and an environmental review, all just to pour a cup of lemonade. You'd think a former teacher would understand how schools are supposed to work. Instead, classrooms are being turned into political testing grounds. Math basics feel optional, while ideological checklists are mandatory. And the only thing growing faster than confusion in Minnesota schools is the number of parents wondering when education stopped being the main goal.
In Minnesota, there were a lot of horrific details that came out today about the suspect who's been charged there. Have you called the governor yet or been able to speak to any of them?
I don't really call him. I think the governor of Minnesota is so whacked out. I'm not calling. Why would I call him? I could call him and say, hi, how you doing? The guy doesn't have a clue. He's a mess. So, I could be nice and call him, but why waste?
We got ourselves in this mess because we weren't bold enough to stand up and say, you damn right we're proud of these policies. We're going to put them in, and we're going to execute them.
So, wait, you lost because you weren't woke enough? That's like telling Joy Behar she's not eating enough Doritos. That's like Jasmine Crockett saying, I gotta black this.
Meanwhile, Donald Trump just folds his arms and watches Tim Walz stumble through press briefings like a parent trying to set up Wi-Fi with no instructions. And Greg Gutfeld, he's clearly loving every second. turning Walz into a nonstop punchline that keeps writing itself. Gutfeld even mocked Walz's leadership by calling it an adorable disaster, harmless at first glance until you notice the damage stacking up behind it. Walz gives big speeches about climate responsibility, then casually hops into a fuel-hungry SUV like the rules don't apply to him. He talks up workers' rights right up until unions start asking for real results, and suddenly the timing is never right. His pandemic response felt more like a stage performance than leadership. One moment, science was treated like sacred truth. Next, early shutdowns were enforced as if viruses follow office hours. Even Trump couldn't ignore the absurdity, especially when liquor stores stayed open while gyms were forced to close. That contrast says more than any press conference ever could.
The tampon king gets back in the ring. I speak of former VP nominee Tim Walz. He joined Beto O'Rourke at a Texas town hall last night, and the estrogen levels were enough to give Chuck Norris menstrual cramps. I wonder, is our strength our diversity?
Our strength is our diversity. We've been talking about.
And somehow through all this chaos, Tim Walz keeps a straight face, acting like no one has noticed the house burning behind him. When crime spikes in Minneapolis, he pivots to community engagement, pitching it like a wellness workshop to a tactical unit. People aren't scrolling for entertainment anymore. They're glued to crime alert apps. It is economic vision. It reads less like a recovery plan and more like instructions for keeping the state stuck in a flooded basement. He talks about taxing the wealthy, which in Minneapolis now seems to include anyone who managed to pay rent this month. Greg Gutfeld isn't just criticizing, he's methodically turning up the heat, slow and relentless. And watching Trump and Gutfeld line up on the same page is shocking enough. Yet, every time Walz faces criticism, he doubles down like a gambler clinging to a losing hand. Question the budget, he spends more. Ask about public safety, and he launches slogans like party favors. At this point, he might actually believe cheerful posters can stop a crime wave.
Quote, as a teacher, my number one responsibility in the classroom is the safety, security, and belongingness of every single child in that room. These are children my son's age, a fourth grader, a 10-year-old who just wants to go to the bathroom. And their identity is they are male or female, and they just go in that bathroom and use it. End quote. Sounds so folksy, you know? Belongingness. Yeah, they'll be belonging in therapy with this guy.
Remember when Minneapolis actually considered dismantling its police department? That should have been Tim Walz's moment to step up. Instead, he hovered nervously on the sidelines like a parent too afraid to say no to a toddler. The result was predictable. Crime spiked, confusion spread, and the city started looking like Gotham with even worse lighting. Greg Gutfeld's segments on Walz turned into group therapy for Motons desperate to hear someone say what they were already thinking, that their governor can't even keep a sock drawer organized. Donald Trump jumped in spotlighting every failure, every cratered road, and even every awkward haircut Walz has endured. And the budget, calling it a mess doesn't even come close. Taxpayer dollars disappeared faster than excuses fuddled into pet projects and endless reports. When Walz promised bold infrastructure action, people briefly felt hope until they realized it meant hiring consultants to make slide decks about potholes. No wonder Gutfeld compared Minnesota's roads to a post-apocalyptic movie set.
So this is Governor Walz. There he is. Do you know we're the same age? I know. I know. He looks like the founder of a law firm specializing in personal injury. He looks like the guy at church who remarries 1 month after his wife mysteriously passes away. He looks like the high school football coach who made sure everyone...
And we still haven't even touched on Walz's crusade against landlords. His rent control plan sounded great online, but in reality, it threw common sense right out the window. Small landlords fled fast. Big ones raised rents, leaving tenants out in the cold, financially and sometimes literally. His so-called solution, another task force. In politics, that usually means months of meetings just to agree on what the problem even is. Donald Trump and Greg Gutfeld barely had to weigh in. The policy unraveled on its own. The state that gave us Prince, Bob Dylan, and 10,000 Lakes is now being run like a college dorm with no adult supervision. Gutfeld called Walz's leadership slides and confusion, and it's hard to argue. Minnesota's transportation system has become a running joke. Projects stall, budgets explode, and results are nowhere to be found. Shiny new rail plans were announced. But there's one tiny problem. The trains don't even exist yet. Even Trump's much ridiculed infrastructure week made more sense. Meanwhile, Walz's own government vehicle fleet pumps out fumes, while he brags about climate goals. At this point, even Trump's jets might leave a smaller footprint. And that's the real issue. This isn't about one bad week or a single headline. It's a pattern. While Minnesota struggles with rising costs, crumbling infrastructure, and growing anxiety, Walz keeps performing leadership instead of actually delivering it. Every failure gets spun, every warning ignored, every consequence buried under another press conference. Gutfeld didn't uncover anything new. He just said aloud what people already see. And when even Trump and Gutfeld agree on something, that alone should set off alarm bells. This isn't satire anymore. It's accountability knocking because sooner or later voters stop laughing, stop excusing, and start asking one brutal question. If this is what leadership looks like, how much more damage can it